Yes, of course.
Hello. Good morning.
Morning, everyone, sir. Good morning, Professor Grover.
Good morning. So I had the announcement sent to the faculty at PEC as well by Professor Sanjeev.
Sure, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Many people prefer to join on the Facebook. They don't want to be.
Convenience है ना अपनी. अभी हमारे स्टूडेंट्स ने जो है इसको जूम सेशंस के साथ साथ इंस्टाग्राम लाइव पे शुरू किया है. जो भी हमारे इस तरीके के वेबिनार्स वगैरह होते हैं, and at least if they're meant for students, the response has been amazing. I mean, every such webinar has hundreds of people listening.
Okay.
Hello, Dharamveer ji, namaskar. Good morning.
Good morning, Professor. Dharamveer ji, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Morning, Professor Kohli.
Hello, very good morning.
Nice to see you here.
Yes, yes. Thank you. कैसे हैं आप?
बस बढ़िया सर. Everything fine. आप सुनाइए. How are things?
All fine. Hello, Rajat.
Hello, Rajat.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Rajat.
बस 2 मिनट में ऑफिस में पहुंचने वाला हूं. मैंने कनेक्ट कर लिया पहले.
Good
morning, Sangeet sir. Welcome.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Good morning, Professor
Good
Ken.
morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Professor Kant.
So good to see you after so long.
Yes, Professor Sangi.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
It's my pleasure to be there with
Good
you,
morning.
sir.
Good
morning,
ma'am.
Good morning.
गड़बड़ हो रही है.
Morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Grover sir.
Good morning.
Welcome, Professor Sofat.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my pleasure to be there with you again.
Yes, you're joining us again. Thank
Oh,
you
yeah.
very much.
So, Sangeet sir, you are well settled at Jaipur.
Sir, absolutely. And I think I'm waiting for your visit to Jaipur.
Yes, we should. As soon as days are over, we might plan for a visit to Rajasthan.
Yes. And spend at least a day in the university. A lot of things to discuss.
Oh, sure.
Professor Sangi,
Sir.
JK के एक स्टूडेंट हमारे IIT के स्टूडेंट हुआ करते हैं JK फैमिली के.
That's right, sir.
मुझे year भूल गया उसका. He was my student also.
Yeah. So he was 1975 graduate, 1970 to 75. Unfortunately, last year he died. He had cancer for last many years. And he has set up a university in Udaipur called Sir Padampat Singhania University.
हाँ जी. ये बड़ी गड़बड़ हो रही है मेरा.
Which the issue हो सकता है शायद.
Professor Kant, your internet has an issue.
ये मैं पहले किसी किया लिंक किया, वो लिंक नहीं बना, कहीं दूसरी जगह से किया करता हूँ. मैं देखता हूँ दोबारा लॉग इन करता हूँ मैं.
या आप कैमरा ऑफ कर दो, then it will flicker will not come. Good morning, Professor Loveling.
सिर्फ सिमरन का हर ब्लॉक, ईच ब्लॉक क्या क्या करना, ये ब्लॉक का ये काम, ये ब्लॉक का ये काम, ये ब्लॉक इस ट्रांसफर फंक्शन पे दे, ये ब्लॉक इस ट्रांसफर फंक्शन पे, हाँ उसका रेफरेंस देना पड़ता है. जैसे ये ब्लॉक जो है इस इक्वेशन से बना,
So Kia, can we start?
Yeah, or we could wait for a few more people to join. 11:04 हुए हैं, 1 मिनट और वेट कर लेते,
Okay.
एक बढ़ गया. Thank you. सर कभी यहीं पे रख दो, सिर्फ गिलास का.
जैसे नहीं ये वो बने सबका, ठीक है.
बैठ.
Okay, Kia, then you can commence.
बहुत बढ़िया.
Laptop. So maybe we can start now.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So welcome to all in today's session, which is the 10th lecture in the series, Visions of Institutions in Northwest India in run-up to India at 100 in 2047. So we started this series on Teachers' Day, September 5 last year, and it will culminate on August 15 next month. So this is the commemoration of 75 years of Indian independence, and it is organized by SPSTI in association with Chandigarh chapters of NASI, INYAS, and INSA. As you will see, INYAS people have participated very actively. And now I request Professor Arun Grover, who is Vice President of SPSTI, to give opening remarks and introduce. Professor Grover.
Good morning, all. It's once again my pleasure to greet you on the occasion of a new lecture in this series. We have had 4 lectures in this series from institutions which are supported by the central government and which operate as deemed university in and around Chandigarh. And these include the first lecture by Dr. Lal from PGI, and then we have had lectures by the Director Aiza Mohali, Director Naipa Mohali, as well as the Director IIT Ropa. We have had 2 lectures from directors of 2 national labs, namely CSR Institute of Microbial Technology, Chandigarh, and DST's Institute of Nanoscience and Technology at Mohali. And we have had 2 lectures by vice chancellors of newer private institutions which have got opened in close proximity to each other in Mohali, and also in close proximity to IISA, NABI, INST, etc. So I personally see that a new era in higher education is emerging in India. Very experienced academic leaders who have served their entire lives in the state institutions of India are getting enticed to accept the vice chancellorships of private universities promoted by the corporate sector with deep pockets. Such institutions are expected to get sustained in decades and centuries to come. This process will go on and on if the experience globally is big to repeat in India as well. So we had, lectures. The Vice Chancellor of Laksha University is someone who is an academic leader, well-known academic leader who came from Indian Institute of Science. Professor Kohli, as Vice Chancellor of MIT University, had served as Vice Chancellor of two universities in India before he accepted the Vice Chancellorship of MIT University at Mohali. And today's speaker again, Professor Dheeraj Sanghi, was a director with us at Punjab Engineering College, deemed to be university and institution of more than 100 years standing. In fact, Professor Dheeraj Sanghi had commemorated the centenary celebration of Punjab Engineering College. I am tempted to recall so many other luminaries who have been associated with SPSTI, who are also serving as vice chancellors of numerous private universities in India at present. These include Professor Manoj Arora, who from PEC had gone to Munjal University near Gurgaon. Now he is at SRM University in Andhra. And I also recall Professor Dande, who is the vice chancellor of a private university. Ram Gopal Verma, who was director of IIT Delhi, is a vice chancellor of BITS group of institutions. Professor Dande, who was director of IIT Kanpur, is also at BITS Misra. Professor Shiv Gankar, who was director of IIT Delhi, also served as a vice chancellor of Bennett University. So a new era is emerging, and it's my belief, and I am confident that by the time 2047 happens, a large part of the load of higher education and research in India will be sort of borne by these private institutions, just as it happens in America. And these private institutions today perhaps are subscribed by people with deeper pockets, students with parents having deeper pockets. But I believe that these private institutions will start sourcing out bright students from the rural India and entice them with scholarships so that they join these private universities to provide an inclusive environment and also raise the level of competition in these universities. Students in a university learn, of course, from the teachers and the environment, but they learn a lot from their own peer group. So if the private institutions have to emerge as inclusive institutions, so like the universities in America, they will not remain institutions exclusive to only parents with the deeper pockets. They will indeed emerge as inclusive institutions in just few decades to come. So I'm very happy that Professor Dheeraj Sanghi has chosen to speak to us with a very nice title, Student-Centric Innovation at JKLU University. It is such innovations, I believe, which will draw students from all strata of the society to such institutions. So with this, I conclude. Back to Kaya.
Thank you, Professor Grover. Very significant remarks. And now, first of all, let me thank Dr. Vijay Kumar, who is joining from Srinagar. Dr. Vijay Kumar is a physicist at NIT Srinagar and a member in INEAS. Dr. Vijay Kumar will introduce our guest of honor today. Dr. Vijay Kumar.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Good morning to all. It's my pleasure to introduce today's guest of honor, Professor Sanjeev Sofar. Professor Sanjeev is presently working as professor in Computer Science and Engineering Department, PEC, Deemed University, Chandigarh, with an overall experience of more than 30 years in teaching, research, and consultancy. During this period, he has held the position of Dean Student Welfare, Dean Academic Affairs, and Deputy Director at PEC University. Based upon his professional experience, he has been invited as the technical consultant for many prestigious projects at both state and national level, including the project on cybercrime and criminal tracking network system. He has been consulted widely and invited to deliver very important lectures at many academic and other high-level seminars in India, UK, Malaysia, and Singapore. In addition, he has attended the 4-week IT Strategies UNISA Security Research Winter School, where he worked with other researchers from Singapore, China, and cybersecurity. With this, I would like to invite Professor Sanjeev for his remarks. Sir, please.
Thank you, Professor Vijay. It is my pleasure to be here with all of you for the session of Professor Dheeraj Sanghi, which is Student-Centric Innovation at JKLU University. I have got a He's a great motivator. He's a great friend of ours. Then now he is at the helm of affair of the engineering education, where we say there are big concerns from about the engineering education, about the efficiency of engineering education in India. Maybe his session will be of a lot of relevance there, because if you look at over the years, the number of students showing interest in engineering is on the decline, and maybe our entrance examination for engineering is one of the example. The number of students is decreasing there. Whereas in other fields, maybe in medical, maybe in others, that is increasing. That's a concern which is there. Then there is another concern which is there for the engineering education. There is an imbalance of the students opting for the branches. Maybe if you look at most of the students, they are opting for computer science or a computer science related fields as one of the areas in which they would like to do the engineering. Maybe if you look at surrounding North India, there are institutes where even other non-circled branches are on the closure only. Maybe if you look at most of the private institutes, they have closed some of these particular branches. That is a matter of concern, because it's not that India may not require this sort of a manpower there, but yes, it is not very lucrative. That's why people are not opting for it. This is a matter of a great concern as far as the engineering education is concerned. And another major concern which we face over there is about the shortage of the faculty which is there. Maybe if you look at all the, even our IITs, most of them have got a shortage of maybe 20% or maybe 30% or something like that. And maybe this was also discussed in the Lok Sabha once. The report was there. There is a lot of lack of faculty there. And what students require is well-educated, reliable, qualified, experienced educator who can impart the sort of education, whereas the same is not available. And the same is true as far as the other institutes are concerned. Maybe the similar things are happening in the private. Maybe now there is another shift which is happening. Now there is a lot of attraction which is there for the private education sector vis-a-vis the government sector there. Maybe if you look at quite a good number of experienced faculty members, they are moving from government to the private sector. That's another concern which is there. Then another concern which is happening in engineering education is about our master's program. Now, good or bad, there are very few takers for our master's program in engineering. That needs a lot of innovation, because Professor Sanghi will talk about innovation in the at their institute, but overall also we require some innovation. How exactly we can think of a master program where we can attract students for the master program there, due to which, let's say, now once we are not having the master program, there is not very many takers for the PhD program now. So these are some of the issues which are affecting our education a lot. So maybe Professor Sanghi's session will be an eye-opener, maybe giving some direction for this particular thing. This is what we are looking for. Thank you very much. This is what I thought I'll discuss with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sofat. Very significant remarks. And now I request Dr. Rishamjit Kaur. She works in CSIO, is an expert in artificial intelligence, and is a member of INYAS. Rishamjit, please introduce the speaker.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It is my pleasure to introduce Professor Dheeraj Sanghi, who is Vice Chancellor of JK Lakshmipat University, Jaipur. He's a reputed computer scientist, Professor of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Kanpur, where he had also been the Dean of Academic Affairs from 2011 to 2014. His research interest, it is in the area of computer networks, protocols, TCP/IP, network security, telecom regulation. He also graduated from IIT Kanpur in 1986, and he received his doctoral degree from University of Maryland College, Maryland College Park, USA. He has also taught at IIT Gandhinagar, IIIT Delhi, Ashoka University. He's a former director of LNMI, IIT Jaipur, and Peck Engineering College, Chandigarh. He writes a very popular blog on contemporary issues in higher education, computer science, and interdisciplinary teaching. With decades of teaching, research, and academics leadership at many leading institutions, he's known for his innovative ideas and student-centric approach. Sir, today we are looking forward to hear your lecture on student-centric approaches for the JK Lakshmipat University. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kaur. It's a pleasure to be here, and I see so many friends and familiar faces on the screen. I really wish I was in Chandigarh at this time and not in Jaipur. I think physically shaking hands with you would have been much more valuable. And thanks for inviting me. I see the entire series of this education has been centered around the Tri-City area, and you agreed to call and discuss a university which is a little away from Tri-City area. Thank you very much for that. Now I will. What I will do is I have a presentation to make, but there are two presentations. Okay, so there is one presentation that some of my students made last night. When I told them that this is what I'm going to do today, so they said, "Sir, ये वाला presentation जो है ना, आप please जरूर दिखाइएगा." I just feel. Let me just share this. I mean, I will show that, and they'll just take 3-4 minutes in that. Advanced sharing option. Let me see where it is. Yeah. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
So this is really just praising me and not about the university, but so I feel a little bit embarrassed sharing this, but still I think this is they've said a lot of good things about me, and I think thoda sa to ego satisfy hona chahiye. So the student centricity, as far as from their lens is concerned, I'll only take 3-4 minutes in going through this quickly before I come to my major presentation. I do sit in the mess with them and listen to them once in a while. We have those of you who are from PEC would remember I used to do this coffee with director there. For anybody who has succeeded in anything, we have a similar culture here. We call it coffee with VC now. A lot of support services. I'm sure these are standard things that most universities do, but we also have them. Student grievance, we take care of them quickly. And I think this is something that my students really like. I mean, I've been on Facebook and LinkedIn for a very long time, but I've been avoiding Instagram and Threads because, I think social media beyond a point can waste your time a lot, but students insisted, and I agreed to be on these two platforms as well very recently, and they really like it. And I comment on a lot of LinkedIn posts of my students, generally try to be present at all their festivals, all their things, and I'm going to talk more about it in my main presentation. The meeting with students doesn't have to be planned. I'll just walk over to the mess at times and then have lunch with them. I don't think I've played basketball with them ever, but I think badminton and table tennis is certainly something that I've done, and so on and so forth. So this was a brief presentation. So I will stop sharing this and go on to my major presentation. We just see where it is. Okay, all right.
Dheeraj, if you don't mind interrupting.
Yeah.
This introductory presentation by the students.
Yeah.
Is really telling. I'm saying this particularly because the institution that you and I come from has been student-centric. Yes. But in many other places, this doesn't seem to happen. It did not happen, is not happening. I hope it happens. I wish I hope for your student presentation, which many of us take for granted, is made available to other institutions. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No, sure. I will share both of these with all of you. Yeah. All right. So now the reason I chose this topic was because, I think 2-3 weeks ago, I was in this FICCI Higher Education Committee, and they had written a report about student centricity, because the NEP 2020 talks about student centricity. Of course, NEP 2020 talks about student centricity primarily in terms of student-centric learning. They don't talk about most other aspects. But this FICCI presentation that I was part of, or I was listening in Delhi, they defined student centricity in these 6 bullet points. And so this is copy from that presentation. And they are about to launch a survey of various universities, asking everyone that, where are you on these points? And there are details about this, which I'm going to present over the next half an hour or so. Okay. All right, so the first thing about student centricity is, of course, student-centric learning, as opposed to teacher-centric learning. So, historically, the way learning has happened is the teacher comes to the class, writes something on the board, teaches something. Students take down notes and they revise those notes, maybe read a book, and finally have an exam, and then you get a grade or percentage marks or whatever, right? But in the last 20 years or so, people have realized that this approach of teacher-centric learning is probably not the best approach for learning, and we need to do more experiential learning, or earlier it was known as project-based learning. Today we call it experiential learning, which is a slightly broader term, which includes AR, VR, and other technologies as well. So, how are we different from most other universities? And I think I probably gave a lecture like this, in fact, when I was there. I learned about this whole student-centric learning. I mean, we have heard about this a long time ago, but really felt it in 2018. I went to this place called Olin College, which is near Boston. I think if there is one gold standard for project-based learning, that's Olin College. And, they have this 1-week training program of sorts to faculty members from around the world as to how to do project-based learning, essentially. Right? And I spent that week there. Very expensive program, I must say. But it was being paid for by JKLU at that time. I was advisor to JKLU at that time. So I could go there. And, so one very simple thing, for example, when I'm in IIT Kanpur and I'm teaching a course on networks and I want to do a project in this course, how did I do this before 2018? Okay. So on 1st August, my first class, I will announce that this course will have a project. This project must, you must develop some application. That application must have a server and client. There should be possible to serve multiple clients at the same time, blah, 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 a few outlines like this. And now I will say, look, why don't you select a team of 3 or 4 and select some application based on this. You could do a chat server or a video server or a file server or video conferencing or whatever you want to do, right? The application is not being defined, but these parameters are being defined. So please tell me within a week who are the members of the project team and what exactly are you going to build, right? So 1 week later, everybody would have submitted something that, okay, this is what we are going to do. This is my team and so on. Then I'm going to announce that, okay, guys, 10th November is the date on which I'm going to take a demo of all of you guys. So you have 3 months to do this project. Okay. And of course, being a great teacher that I am, of course, right? Therefore, I'm available to you any time of the day. You can call me at midnight. I'll still help you. You can come to my office, etc., etc. And anytime you have a problem in this project execution, please let me know and I'll help you. Now, what happens is till 1st November, nobody has any problems in executing that project. Now, 1st November, I'll send an email to all students or say it in the class that, hey guys, remember 10th November is the project demo. I hope all of you are close to finishing that project. Suddenly in the afternoon, you find that there is a long queue of students outside your office saying, sir, ye nahi ho raha, wo nahi ho raha, this is the problem, that is the problem, and right? And then there is a request that can we postpone this deadline to 17th, 10th was a Saturday, that's why I meant set that. So 1 week delay. And invariably, I'll have to say at this time, okay, let's do it on 17th. That is when the project really starts. And it really is a project done over 1 weekend. Friday night to Monday morning is the project done, right? And these are IIT students who can actually finish a good project in 48 hours. In most other colleges, it will be cut and paste. Right? This is how project-based learning happens in universities. And very simple thing that Olin told us is, instead of once a semester presentation, why don't you do every second day? So they said our projects, we monitor every second day, alternate day, right? Which of course is huge investment of time from faculty, which means that you will need a huge faculty resource. I don't think any of our universities will have that kind of money to have that kind of faculty student ratio. But the point is that if you understand that, there is no point in evaluating project at the end of the semester, maybe you can do once a week, maybe you can do once in 10 days, right? I mean, so it's a trivial learning that you shouldn't leave the project to the students, but have a monitoring mechanism or have a discussion very, very frequently, preferably less than a week. And there's so many other things that we learned from Olin. What should be the difficulty level of the project? Should we completely leave it to the students? Should we define some difficulty level, right? And there, for example, they would argue that if the project is too simple, it becomes too boring and people get frustrated in terms of, I'm not learning anything. On the other hand, if it is too difficult, then the students get frustrated because there's too much work to be done for achieving what they want to achieve. So it has to be just at a difficulty level, which is just, it pushes them a little bit beyond what their current capacity is. And how do you judge that? How do you select a group? It should be random. It should be students selecting it. It should be faculty selecting it. Again, there's a lot of research that has gone into these things. And we don't quite look at that kind of research. But at JKLU, we have made it a point that we will follow Olin methodology in all our programs. Now, Olin methodology of project-based learning goes beyond just this thing about doing projects, right? So I'll give you a very interesting example. So when I went there for this 1 week course in 2018, where they were telling us how to teach Olin way, so it was basically organized in a multiple workshops for 1 hour each. I mean, some 20 workshops there in that one week, right? And each workshop was to belabor one particular point. So in one of the workshops, this person conducting the workshop, he puts out a PPT and it has about 10 questions. And the questions were, can a student decide the curriculum? And which means that different students in the class will study different things. Can a student decide the room in which the classes or the learning will happen? Can the students decide the timing? Can the students decide when the exams will be held? Can the students will decide, X, Y, Z, right? And I'm looking at these 10 questions and I'm like, maybe 1 or 2 of these things, if we really push hard, we can do, but otherwise, most of these things students can't decide. I mean, how can the student decide the curriculum? The curriculum has to be decided by Board of Studies or my academic council or Senate, right? So they said, okay. And everybody in the room, we were from like 20 different countries, and everybody in the room said, yeah, what kind of questions are these? You obviously, students can't decide pretty much any of these things. Right? And they said, okay, let's do now. We tell you how we teach history. Okay, so we were all like, there were these 10 tables with 4 people on each of those tables. And there was a center table on which a lot of consumer goods were lying around. Right? They said every table guy comes to this center table and pick up one thing. So our group of 4, we went there and we picked up a bottled water. Okay, out of all the things that were lying there. And we come back and the bottled water is now on our table. And they said each group should now see the product that you have picked up. Was that product needed in some ways? What is the need that this product is serving? Was this need there 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, 5,000 years ago? And if so, how was that need satisfied at that time? Okay. And we are like, this bottled water is only 25 years old technology. I don't know whether anybody would have thought about something equivalent 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, but we are doing brainstorming, 4 of us. And finally, it clicked to us that the need that this bottle serves is carrying of water with me. Because, I get out of the house, and the house, I'm assuming I have good quality water, and I'm traveling, and I don't know whether I'm going to get good quality water, and therefore I'm carrying my own water. So this is a carrier mechanism, and carrying mechanism must have been needed 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. So how did they manage carrying of water at that time, right? And of course, then we said there are 2 kinds of carrying of waters. One is micro, the other is macro. Micro is you're carrying 1, 2, 3 liters of water. The macro is you want to transport millions of liters of water. And the reason you may want to transport millions of liters of water is that, cities were, of course, made around the rivers in 2,000 years ago, but the city width itself was about 2 kilometers. I mean, if you look at Harappa, the city width was about 2 kilometers. And the city was made beyond the floodplains. The floodplains itself is 1 kilometer. So from the normal river, the last house is 3 kilometers away. So you need to carry a lot of water from the river to the last house, right? So there is a macro transport and there is a micro transport, right? And we said, okay, for micro transport, yeah, there used to be there's leather-based things. In fact, we have seen in our childhood people carrying water in leather pouches, right? And these apparently are about 2,000 years old. And then, when the Iron Age happened, something else came up. Ceramics happened, something else came up. Then Copper Age happened, something else came up, and so on. So the technology kept changing. And now, similarly for macro, we said this Roman Empire had fantastic aqueducts, which were taking water to hundreds of kilometers, not just 2-3 kilometers. So then the history teacher will come to us and say, okay, that's a good start. But now, let's say aqueducts in Roman Empire. The next question you should now think about is, Roman Empire lasted probably more than most other empires in the world. Did aqueducts play a role, strategic role there, right? And so on and so forth. So for next 1 hour, we are asking questions, we are doing Googling, finding solutions, then we are asking more questions, then doing Googling, finding solutions, and so on and so forth, right? At the end of the workshop, they said, okay, now tell me, can a student decide the curriculum? Each one of you on 10 different tables studied different history. Okay. So it's obvious that student can indeed decide the curriculum. And this was a very interesting way to learn history. You're raising questions, you're doing Googling, you're getting to some good history books and stuff. And then you're reading them and then next set of questions. And you are discussing that with 4 people, 4 peers, right? So, and the teacher is almost not required. I mean, teacher will come in only for like 1 minute in the whole hour or something like this, right? So I think the learning how to learn is also very important in this experiential learning thing, right? Another exercise was, this question about whose responsibility is it to maintain student motivation? Now, again, in this workshop in Olen, they said, around the world, every faculty member would have at some point in time said, this student is demotivated, I can't teach him. Or my students in general are demotivated, I can't teach them. Okay. If their performance is poor, it is because of their demotivation. So every teacher in every college in the world would have made this statement sometime or the other. But is this statement something we should accept? So, and their point was that is motivation something a property of a student, or is motivation the property of a situation? If motivation was the property of a student, then why did you admit him? It's clear that student was at some point in time motivated enough to perform whatever, test you had or whatever other things you had for admission, and he got admission. So if the motivation was the property of a student, then, you should not have admitted. But if it is a property of a situation, who is responsible for that situation? In an academic institution, all rules are decided by faculty. In a classroom, everything is decided by the faculty. And then if the student doesn't perform, the faculty will say the student is not motivated. The situation is created by you. You please make sure that students are motivated, right? And they then gave an example of how this motivation can indeed be created. So they said, okay, in one of the courses, after every class of 1 hour, they will note down, and there is a small test that helps you do this. What is the motivation level of the student at the end of that class? They did this for all 40 lectures. So this was one of the rare courses where they had 40 lectures. Most of their courses don't have 40 lectures. So at the end of 40 lectures, they saw the average motivation level of the students. And the average motivation level of the student, they said, in the beginning of the semester, it is high. Then at some point in time in the semester, it suddenly goes down. And then slowly it comes back up again and it remains high for the remaining part of the semester. Right? So this is the curve that they're seeing based on the data that they've collected at the end of every lecture. Now, they are now worried, why did this dip happen at that time in the semester? Okay. So I said, most faculty members would just brush it off. Yeah, something must have happened, maybe, right? They said, no, we studied this. We said exactly what was the kind of lectures you did, what was the kind of assignments you gave, what was the exam dates, what were the project dates, and so on and so forth. And then it turned out that on that day when it dipped, there was a major project due. Now, it's very clear that if you have a very major project report due, people are kind of saying, why am I doing this project report? Why am I working so hard? And they're demotivated and so on and so forth. They did a lot of research into this then. Half the faculty saying that after the motivation level came down, it actually came back up again. And therefore, people learned how to deal with the stress. So there is nothing to be changed, nothing to be done. While other half of the faculty members are saying, this is not the right way to do teaching and learning. We must figure out a way next time we teach this course that there is no such dip. And finally, the second half won. And now the question is, how do I change my course so that there is no such dip in motivation? And it was a very simple answer after that. The answer was that instead of one major project requirement and their date, can I say there are weekly reports to be submitted? The first week, you will say, what is the title? What is the abstract? What is the methodology? The second week, you will say, what is the background work and so on. The third week, you will say, this is the process I've adopted and so on. And the fourth week, you will do results, right? There is no one major project deadline. And immediately next year, when they taught the course, the motivation level remained up throughout the semester. So their point was, and I'm saying this story because I tell this story to every new faculty member who joins JKLU, that motivation is your responsibility. I don't want to ever hear that the student was demotivated, therefore the student performed poorly. So I think we have learned a lot from Olin. We got a lot of faculty members from Olin to JKLU to talk to our faculty. We sent a team to Olin a couple of times and so on. And I think that's how today we can very easily say that we are probably one of the best in terms of student-centric learning. The second part of this FICCI report was curriculum alignment with career goals and aspirations of the students. So one of the things that we adopted very early on, and this is something, before I have joined JKLU, so I shouldn't take all the credit for everything that I'm talking about today. So this is the line we prepare students not for the first job of the career, but the last job of the career. This is the line which IIT Kanpur have used for last 50 years. And, thankfully in JKLU, there have been a lot of people from IIT Kanpur in the past also who have joined and worked and so on. So this is the line we have borrowed from IIT Kanpur. And what is it that you need to do to prepare them for the last job of the career? The most important thing today is learning how to learn. Somebody who is graduating at the age of 21, 22 is going to keep working for at least 50 years. I mean, today, most of us think that we should keep working till the age of 70. Many people are working till 75, 80, right? But let's say 70 is a very normal, I don't think anybody retires, unless there is a medical situation or something, nobody retires before 70. And 50 years from now, people will probably retire at 75 or 80. So at least 50 years. There is nothing at all that I can teach or any university can teach in terms of technical skills, knowledge, etc., that will be useful 50 years from now. And therefore, we need to focus on while we do need to prepare them for the near future, we also need to prepare them for the long-term future. And therefore, the things that we focus on are learning how to learn. Learning how to learn means if the student learns himself or herself, then they are more likely to keep learning for the remaining part of their life. So projects we have already talked about, a lot of online self-learning courses, we kind of insist the students should take self-learning courses, whether it's NPTEL, Coursera, or any other platform, YouTube, etc. Of course, we provide free access to Coursera. We have a tie-up with Coursera that we provide free access to all unlimited Coursera courses to our engineering students, all our engineering students. Critical thinking is another thing that we really think is probably the most important skill. Okay? We have a Center for Critical Thinking, and every student in the university, irrespective of the program, does 6 courses on critical thinking. And when I say courses on critical thinking, they're not courses on like what is critical thinking kind of courses. These are courses which will build critical thinking. So for example, identity politics in society. I think this is a course that we have designed, and the way we teach is you're forced to think about issues, right? So there are 6 such courses for every student in every program, whether it's design, engineering, management, doesn't matter, right? So our students, so one of the things, recently I was talking to one of the companies who selected, 100% of our students from campus. I said, what happened? Why did you do this? This is unheard of, right? And he said, your students, whenever we asked a question in the interview, waited for 5 seconds and then responded, and everybody gave a different response. This is what we really liked about your students. And that's critical thinking. Multidisciplinary. Future problems are not going to be solved in a single discipline. They must have a lot of breadth in terms of knowledge. So, as I said, we have 3 colleges, engineering, design, and management. Every student will do courses from all 3 colleges. So, an engineering student must do a couple of courses from design, a couple of courses from management, and so on. And of course, this is besides the critical thinking courses that I already talked about. Flexibility in the curriculum, large number of electives, again, copied from IIT Kanpur. A lot of things that I'm talking about, Professor Satyamurthy said earlier that, we have been doing this in IIT Kanpur, and IIT Kanpur is where I've grown up, both as a student and as a faculty member. So a lot of these things, are from that experience. Industry readiness. Now, this is something that, in fact, I've talked multiple times about this. Normally, what do universities think of industry readiness? Everybody talks about my students are industry ready. But exactly what happens in a typical university? A typical university will say, first 3 years, if they don't study, it's okay. And then suddenly, at the end of 3 years, in the summer or as soon as the 4th year starts, you should learn a technology which is hot, so that you will get a job in the industry soon thereafter, right? So July, August, I'm going to train you on Flutter, and in September, I'll get you a job in, in a company which requires Flutter or whatever else, right? We think very differently. To us, the industry readiness means ability to learn any new skill or technology quickly. And the difference between these 2 definitions, knowing what the technology is being used currently versus ability to learn new skills. This is something, you talk to people in the companies. If you talk to the junior guys, they will say, I want somebody with this technology. You talk to the senior guys and the experienced guys, CTOs kind of people, they will say, if your student can learn things in 2 weeks and my training cost can come down as a result, that's all I care. Because any technology that is hot today is going to be not so hot 6 months from now. So I don't care about his readiness from the perspective of whether he knows the current technology or not. So we have taken that thing, and frankly, we have fantastic placement as a result, I think. Programs that we run, we really think that we shouldn't force a program on a student. There should be changes possible. So change of programs after first year should be possible across programs. Something very important that we have taken a decision on is we will not do dual degree. Okay. Why do we not do dual degree when every other university is offering dual degree? Because we sincerely believe that a 12th class student cannot be forced to have an MTech along with BTech. Okay. Cannot be forced that you will do BCA plus MCA. Okay. And I always tell my students, Look, I am not the best university in the world. I am very conscious of this. I am much better than hundreds of universities or thousands of universities. But there are hundreds of universities which are better than me. Therefore, if you are about to go to one of those hundreds of universities from which I am the better one, please come to me for your undergraduate. But since there are hundreds of universities better than me, please go there for master's program. I don't think any university in the world will say, don't do master's with me, after doing bachelor's with me, right? But we really, the focus is student success. Is the student taking the right decision to do master's with me after doing bachelor's? Of course, there are some exceptions. Some people may say, I only want to study in Jaipur for family reasons. Some people may say, I want to study in a cheaper place. You are very cheap, therefore want to study here. Okay, that's okay. But if you are studying master's with me, after doing bachelor's with me, because you didn't get admission in a better place, then it's a failure of my university. That's how we look at it. Student mobility is something that, NEP 2020 is talking about, but we started doing this 6 years ago, long before NEP was talked about. So students are allowed to earn credits in another educational institution. We do get a lot of lateral admissions every year with credit transfer, so they directly get into our second year and so on. But more importantly, several of our students spend 1 or more semesters at IITs, IIT Delhi, IIT Hyderabad, foreign universities, and so on. This is something which is absolutely unique with JK Lakshmipat University. Right? I am not aware of any college in this country which allows these things. And almost 25 to 30% of my engineering batch spends at least 1 semester in one of the IITs doing courses. I'm not talking about, there are a lot of universities which will say 8-semester project, you can go to IIT and do a project there, right? But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about courses being done along with the students of IITs sitting in the IIT classroom. This is, JKLU is the only university that I know of which allows this for a large number of students. Also, support for student entrepreneurship. This I'm sure a lot of universities are doing today. We have a Atal Incubation Center, a lot of government schemes. I'm sure everybody else has some of these things as well. Student participation in university administration. Again, a lot of this is copied from IIT Kanpur. We think this is really building leadership qualities in our schools and in our students. The students are part of almost every committee in the university, including academic council, which is the highest academic decision-making body of the university. They're part of disciplinary committee. 50% are students in our disciplinary committee. And what we noticed, very interesting, so till 2 years ago, the disciplinary committee was only faculty, right? And there were hardly any punishments given for anything under the sun, right? Faculty didn't want to be unpopular. But when we put students there, the students will insist, sir, this has to be done this way. So, we were very pleasantly surprised. Manage all events on campus. We ask student volunteers and student leadership to help us in everything, including our, one of the flagship event that we have, which we started this year, Jaipur Design Week. So in the month of February, March, we do 1 week of design-related activities. And we are hoping that, in a few years' time, the Jaipur Design Week will become similar to Jaipur Literary Festival, one of the largest design festival in the country or in the world. That's the aspiration. Students will manage alumni relations. We have a student ambassador program, where students go to their respective schools and talk about JKLU and all that and build relationship with their juniors. Campus life, the students manage pretty much any decision that is to take place on the campus. They will negotiate with the mess, for example. They will decide how the hostel rooms are allocated. They will, all the decisions are taken by students. There is life beyond classrooms, of course. I'm not going to take much time because I think this is something which is very common in all universities. Every university will have a large number of cultural clubs, sports teams, technical clubs, and creating new clubs is very simple. So I don't think there is anything special here. I think listening to students is very important if you want to be really student-centric as a university. Of course, we have the normal channels of addressing student grievances, which I'm sure all universities will have. Escalation metric, which is prominently put at multiple places with phone numbers, email addresses, and so on. I think all universities will have some kind of counseling support, all that. But I think what we do differently is this interaction in the informal setup. This builds trust. And I encourage my warden, my other deans, and so on, that every once in a while we should just randomly walk into the mess, eat in the mess, sit with the students, and listen to them. Right? And whenever the students are organizing the events, often I will just go there before time and just start talking to the organizers and see what challenges they faced and so on and so forth. And I said earlier, pick up a badminton or a TT racket and play a few knocks. Celebrate every success, make them feel special. We already talked about coffee with BC and commenting on all social media posts of students. Every day morning, the morning starts with, I will go to LinkedIn, search for JKLU, and whatever posts show up, I will like, comment, share on those posts. So students are pretty happy with that. So inclusive and diverse classrooms is another aspect of student centricity. Again, this is as per the definition of the key higher education committee. Your definition of student centricity may differ. So to do this inclusive classroom, we have regular sessions by our Center for Communication and Critical Thinking. By the way, this Critical Thinking Center is really the heart and soul of the university. They tell us what is the right thing to do all the time. They have so many events on the campus where we learn not just about our rights, about law, about freedom of expression, about rights of women, child, etc., etc. So there are so many sessions that sensitizing our students about what could be termed as sexual harassment, the rights of LGBTQ, etc. The sensitivities of identities, caste, religion. People are very sensitive about them. What words you use when you interact with people from minority, people from other religions and regions, and so on. And the basic point is university must be a safe space for every person and every idea. That's really the key to having an inclusive classroom. So we are a very small university, only about 900 students. And despite being such a small university, we have students from more than 25 states. And in fact, what we do to increase this diversity is we provide special scholarships to students from states which are underrepresented. So at the beginning of every year, we will say, these are the states from where we have less number of students, and we want more students, and therefore we are giving extra scholarships. I think this is probably the last slide. So we accessible in terms of financially. So we are a philanthropic university of JK Group, as all of you know. We do not run from tuition income, but from donations. All the JK companies give us donations, and that's how we run. In fact, a majority of our budget, more than 50% of the budget, is through donations. And as a result, we are able to maintain very, very generous scholarships, both merit and means-based. And unlike most other places, most scholarships given at admission time are meant for entire duration of the program. A lot of students get 100% scholarships, which means that for the entire 3 or 4 years, they will not pay a single rupee. And tuition is waived if the primary earner of the family passes away. This is something I want to just take one more minute on how this came about, because this will show you how student-centric. It's not just me, it's not just my team here, but the founders are. This is when the second wave of COVID was happening in April 21. Huge number of people were dying. And I just joined JKLU at that time. I think I joined on like 7th May. And I noticed full page ads by pretty much every private university in Jaipur, which said, we are so supportive of our students that if any student's father dies by COVID, we will waive the remaining tuition for the rest of the program. Okay. And these were like full page ads. Right? So one day I met my chancellor, Shri Bharathariji Singhania, and I said, do we do something like this also? So the first thing he says is, you may do whatever you want to do, but there is no need to put an ad on this. He says, politics, लाशों पे politics, politicians को करने दो, हम नहीं करेंगे. आपको policy बनानी है, बना दीजिए policy. Then he said, if somebody dies out of COVID, we will waive the tuition. But if somebody dies due to a heart attack, that guy will continue to pay tuition. Isn't there a problem in this? Right? So if you want to do things, you say, if the bread earner dies, we will not charge any more money. That's it. Right? So we made that rule that if your bread earner dies, no tuition. right? And I can tell you later on, so within that few months, within the next 2 months, when the semester was to start, at that time, we only had about 500 students. Out of 500 students, there were 2 students who said their father has passed away in COVID, right? And we, of course, waived the tuition for these 2 students. Now, I thought about it and I said, if I have only 500 students and 2 fathers have died, then what about the university which have 10,000 students? There must be 30, 40 cases like that, right? So I called up a few friends in other universities and I said, you know, I saw your full page ad and all that. How many students have you waived fees of? Right? And they were like, no, none. I said, why? He said, nobody could provide a certificate saying the father's death was due to COVID. Right? Because no doctor was willing to write that the death is due to COVID. Right? So, you know, I think this is the difference that I see in being student-centric and being profit-centric. And, you know, being a philanthropic university, we are able to do certain things. Now, tomorrow, if I'm forced to run university out of tuition income, I'm sure some of these things will have to give way. But at least as of now, you know, a lot of these things we're able to do. Thank you very much. I would be happy to take certain questions. I think we do have a lot of time. It was supposed to last till 12:30. It's only 12 o'clock. So, you know, any questions?
So thank you very much. Wonderful talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Guru.
Very inspiring.
I'm sure there'll be many questions and comments. So please raise your hands or just start talking. Yeah, Professor Satyamurthy, please go ahead.
Yeah, there was a wonderful presentation. Now I know why you left PEC. I'm making it just an honest statement. Okay, no, nothing implied. Okay, tell me about this open, the flexibility in your students going to IITs, IIIT, and all attending courses.
Yeah.
How does that work? You know, generally, my perception is that, yeah, we must keep it open as long as you don't come to my institute and my doors are closed.
Okay, so I think a lot of IITs on paper have schemes to take non-degree students. IIT Kanpur started this around 2000, almost 25 years ago, right? And yes, you are right. IIT Kanpur, under some pressure, decided that plan and then would not advertise that plan at all. And if somebody found out about this plan and applied, they will say, we don't have hostel space. Right? So, but you know, somebody like me would call up the director and say, yeah, I know about this plan because I was the author of that plan, right? I had taken it to Senate and I had presented it in the Senate. So I know the plan exists, right? I know it is part of your UG manual, PG manual, etc. Right? And please, you know, if you have 8,000 students, 2 more students, 3 more students wouldn't hurt you. And therefore, I'm able to push it, right? There are other IITs like IIT Gandhinagar which actually advertise this. So they have a real portal. They put an ad on social media. So they are very welcoming of the other things. I think the reason why we are able to do it, not just because I know people around, and you know, which of course JKLU has been doing this from 2017 onwards. So I wasn't around all the time, right? But we're able to do this because, you know, there are some other colleges which also have this thing. If you want to study somewhere else for a semester, we'll allow it, but we will charge you tuition for that semester. We don't want revenue loss. So you do tuition here also and there also, double tuition. Nobody wants to do that. In our case, we say, if you are not studying on our campus, we will not charge anything for that semester.
Thank you.
So this philanthropy model of the university.
From Pallav Mukherjee says, totally like your approach. Thank you for the talk. Please go ahead, Professor Grover, you were saying something.
So this philanthropic way of running the university is a very good model. And there must be at least 100 such persons in the country who have deep pockets like the initiator of your university. Yeah. So is it possible that the 99 more will get motivated to run such institutions?
So I think things are happening. I mean, Shivnadar, for example, I think that's a prime example of, I mean, the amount of money Shivnadar Foundation is putting in is much more. I mean, probably 10 times more than what JK is putting in this university. I mean, so that's like probably the highest amount of money around. Then Plaksha is there, which is purely philanthropic model. I mean, you know, it's not that we have zero tuition, we have tuition, but 50% of our budget comes from philanthropy. And I think that model is there. Ashoka is there. Kriya is coming up. So I think many places are looking at it as that model of philanthropy. And I would say even a model where the initial infrastructure is provided by the founders and then made to run on their own is a philanthropic model. Because initially, and if you include that on a continuous basis, you don't provide support every year, but the initial support was provided. Then there are huge number of universities which were set up in that fashion, where the owners are not inclined to take a profit out of the university.
But then the state institutions are also set up like that.
Well, yeah. So
IIT is not set up like that. Were the initial 5 universities at the beginning of 20th century not set up like that?
Yeah, so all government universities were set up like this. I mean, a government being a funder is in some sense philanthropic. People don't pay full cost, right? And clearly, many of those government institutions like IITs and ITs, etc., have done extremely well because they are able to attract good students at lower cost, and they are able to provide that service of good education to wide masses of the people. But unfortunately, there are, in at least state government colleges, what we find is there has been too much of politics and something else, because of which that advantage has not been accruing to the society. But a lot of government colleges, at least central government colleges, I think certainly have done wonders for this country.
So there is the only difference between your place and the government institution is the courts don't interfere. The politicians local politicians cannot interfere. So, you can take your own decisions. So you are truly autonomous in that sense. You are shielded from the vagaries of, personal whims.
That is right. And I think one should also give credit to successive Rajasthan governments for this. The private sector bill in Rajasthan is one of the most liberal in terms of what it allows. Of course, I would say Punjab and Haryana are also fairly liberal in that sense. But if you look at UP, if you look at Gujarat, if you look at Karnataka, the amount of control they have on private universities is really bad. So I think a credit must be given to successive governments also to allow that kind of freedom to the universities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Venkat.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Professor Sanghi. A very nice presentation. I've been following your works in Facebook and LinkedIn. My question is about the activities of the Center for Critical Thinking. Can you throw us some light about what exactly is the center doing, and how do you foresee it? Does the center also offer some courses like PG level courses on critical thinking, or is it more towards is it just a kind of a course, or if it's a full center, then there will be many activities? So can you talk about the Center for Critical Thinking? Thank you.
Yeah. So Center for Critical Thinking has two aspects of it. One aspect is to offer courses which develop critical thinking, right? So I gave an example of identity in society, right? This is a sociology course. A social science person will teach this course, but the way it is taught is that at every lecture, people are forced to think about their identity, and which we have seen encourages you to do critical thinking. So there are 6 courses of this kind, which every student in the university has to go through. So that is one aspect of it. And we have about 8 faculty members from different disciplines like sociology, literature, political science, history, and so on. Right. The other aspect of the center is that they organize a large number of events. And this is where I said, my Center for Critical Thinking is really the heart and soul of the university, because all of them come from so-called liberal places like Jamia Millia, JNU, University of Hyderabad, kind of places. And they are, I mean, today a lot of people will say, are these left-leaning people you have collected there? But I think these are the people who always talk about the rights of people, the freedom of expression, so we have every week, there is an event where we'll invite some very good speaker to talk about, the LGBT rights, the rights of women, the sexual harassment, the rights of, recently we had a lecture on rights of child, the CRY people came and gave a workshop. So I think a focus is on how do you be a good human being? And I will tell you an example of what that results in. Okay? So, the last summer, so we have I think a design program, the Bachelor of Design, which I would feel that is the best program in the university. We are probably better than NID Ahmedabad in terms of the quality of education that we provide in design. Now, they had all of the design students, they had about 3 internships each at the beginning of the summer. Now they have to choose between these 3. Now, typically, what does a student do when they have 3 options? Typically, they will say which option gives them more honorarium or more stipend, right? Or which one of them is closer to home, or which one of them is in a name brand, company, right? More than half of my students selected the internship, which was in a remote area, because they said, I want to make an impact on the society. And that's what Critical Thinking Center has done to them. Okay. I feel very, very proud when a student comes in and says, sir, I was getting this 10,000 rupee internship in a good company, but I decided to go to this remote area in Odisha because I think I can help that NGO in 2 months in doing things. And he actually created a system there whereby they can continue to earn through the products that he designed in those 2 months for the remaining part now. So I feel very proud of my students that, and this is all because of this various activities that the Center for Critical Thinking does.
Excellent efforts. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor Kant, would you like to say a few words? Professor Kant, please unmute.
Well, yes, it's always a pleasure to listen to eminent alumni of IIT Kanpur. Just as Professor Satyamurthy mentioned, Professor Sanghi has been able to do at JKLU University whatever he wanted to do. And I could see both at JKLU and even IISER Mohali, there's a reflection of programs at IIT Kanpur. And apparently IIT Kanpur has contributed a lot as regards higher engineering education. I see a number of our alumni, either directors or vice chancellor of various engineering institutions and universities. It is always a pleasure, and I wish the success to Professor Sanghi in his mission for unique engineering education, I would say. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
so
you.
much. I mean, from coming from a teacher, it's like I'm really humbled and really thank you for those kind words, sir.
Professor Rajat Sandhir, please unmute yourself.
Oh, just a second. So, very nice lecture. A lot of things to learn, and I would say I have one question. How do you involve students? You said 50% of students in the committees are with students. So I see that a challenge in a university like Punjab University, because there are a lot of student politics also. Dr. Grover touched upon this indirectly. So I'm asking you directly, how do you involve students in committees? Because that will be a challenge, but it is a great model to use. And we've seen when students come in the committees, their participation actually is more meaningful because they give you a shoulder in taking tough decisions. So any comments on that? Sir?
So frankly, I wouldn't want to comment on how to do it in a large university like Punjab University. But I can tell you, my experience in PAC was very similar. When you give power to students, they deliver. For example, one of the issues in PAC was about this hostel allotment, right? Some clerk with the Dean Students Affairs and all that were doing it, and every semester they were like chaos. Sir, I wanted this room, that room, this happened, that happened. And I just said, yeah, why are we getting into this? Let the students, let there be a student committee and let them do it and let them fight it out about, first they should figure out a policy and they should implement it. And this is what we did. And there was no complaint whatsoever, right? Because what are they going to complain against? Against their own friends, right? And generally, the students are good at making sure that, every stakeholder's request is taken care of, right? They know their problems. The complaints are happening because we don't understand some of those problems and they know their problems. My feeling, as I said, in this disciplinary committee, 50% students. So we have like 4 students and 4 faculty, and then there's a chairman. So it's like 5, 4, it's not exactly 50%. But the students are the ones who say, sir, somebody gets caught in a cheating in an exam, right? Earlier, when it was purely faculty will say, what we should do is we should just give 0 in that particular question which was being done at the time we caught, right? And the students are saying, sir, this guy is habitual, this thing, because of him, because of the relative grading, our grades are suffering. He should be thrown out of the university. And I have to tell them, no, we shouldn't throw out of the university because of one mistake. And the students are very, very this thing. How exactly it will work out in another institution, I would not be able to comment on this, but I think in general, empowering students give good results. Specific instances, I think we can discuss offline.
Thank you. There are some remarks from
Okay. So I think Divya is asking about how much attention we pay to bodies like UGC, AICT, and the second question is about the master's program. So as far as UGC and AICT are concerned, my take is that if you do well, these bodies don't come after you. Okay. I do not read any letter from UGC. And I encourage my faculty members not to read letters from UGC, because my belief is that most of the time what UGC is saying is reasonable, and if you are going to do well, it will by and large be consistent with what UGC wants us to do. Okay. But if you read the letter, there might be some words that you may interpret differently. You may want to then put more restrictions and so on. And in my experience, and I've dealt with UGC, if you tell them that, look, we are not following you, but we are not following you because we are doing better than what you wanted us to do, they don't bother you. Unless you get into a political trouble. That is the risk I'm taking by not following UGC. That tomorrow, if there is a political problem, between me and the government, then yes, UGC will come with the entire force and say what is going on. Yes. That is the risk I think was worth taking. Okay. As far as master's programs are concerned, master's programs are dying all over the world because of online education. If you look at US, most of the master's students are immigrant. Master's degree, I've talked to many people in US, they say master's degree is an immigration degree, right? Because it's the easiest thing to get an F1 visa to go to US, and then after a STEM degree of 1.5 years, you get 3-year work visa without bothering about H1. So master's degree is purely an immigration degree. No US citizen will do master's. I mean, what very few, right? The same thing is happening here. The companies today, what is the premium they're paying for masters? Very little, because they say, we don't really care for everything that you have learned in the masters. Whatever we want you to learn, please learn on Saturday, Sunday. Please learn it on the weekends. It's available now online, right? So the companies are not giving enough, value for master's degree, and therefore master's degree will go away sooner or later. I think universities will need to think about this because master's traditionally has been a revenue earner. Okay. How do we handle this? I really don't know, but I think we'll need to get into short-term courses, weekend courses, part-time masters, and many of these things. But really, I haven't seen a successful model yet. So I think I shouldn't speak much more than this.
Thank you. Now, Dharamveer would like to say a few.
Thank you for very good lecture and giving us different perspective of how a university or a college could be managed. However, I have a couple of questions. What is the financial sustainability? Because you obviously won't be able to charge everything out of students' fees. So there would be a lot of gap between
Donations.
the realization and the expenditure.
Donations.
So how long donation would work?
Yes. So it's a very good question.
Government, by and large, is able to meet out of the budget whenever it sets up a college of such an institution of this type.
Yeah. So I think, look, eventually the plan that we have is that all my operational expenses should come out of tuition. Okay. So at any point in time, I'm running my university reasonably well with tuition. And whenever there is even the slightest expansion or improvement in quality or whatever is needed, that money should come from donations, right? So today, of course, there is a large amount of money in infrastructure and so on. So my donations are very large. See on the operation side. So if we look at, if my operation side is 20 crores, I get about 10 crores from tuition and 10 crores from donations. This 10 crore from donations is not likely to increase. And therefore, as I grow in size, I will have to charge. I mean, right now I'm charging about 50% of my operational expense from tuition. I'll have to charge 60, 70, 80% of my operational expenses from tuition in future. But I think the bigger expenses are really in terms of buildings, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of, every 5 years I replace all my computers. I mean, that's a huge expense. The networking and, the plan budget that we call it in the government, right? That's a huge amount of money. And that money is something that would actually be, every single year that has been more than my operational budget. So if my operational budget is 20 crores, my investments are more than 20 crores. And that entire 20, whatever those investments will come to donations. Now, in future, the plan is that, if those donations dry up, because they also run hospitals, they also run a lot of schools. JK has huge number of these philanthropic institutions, right? Then we will not grow much more. So reducing my planned budget, right? That is the eventual goal. So that my non-planned budget should come out of tuition and my planned budget should come out of donations. And if I don't have money in a particular year, I will not grow in that particular year.
No, that's a very interesting model that you mentioned. But I still believe that sustainability of an institution like this, if you compare it with BITS Pilani, for instance, which has sustained for several decades. Now, I believe they have a model where they have been given huge sum of money, and Birlas keep pumping in money whenever required.
Actually, no, sir. No. I'll tell you, I've seen the financial position of BITS Pilani, by the way. So the Birlas gave a huge amount of money in the 40s and 50s. That's it. Since then, there has been very little donation. Okay. Their major income source from the 70s onwards was this distance education program that they ran in the campuses of companies and so on. Right. That was a huge bread earner, which subsidized their BTech things. Now, over the last few years, because of online education, their distance education program is no longer such a big bread earner. And therefore, they have had to increase their tuition. Today, their tuition is more than 4 lakh rupees, which I think is reasonably enough. So their BTech program is probably subsidized by 10%, but that's it. There is no subsidy.
But compared to other private engineering colleges that I know, I think they're still better off even if they are charging 4 lakhs.
Yeah, BITS Pilani, I think to me in the private sector space, I always admire BITS Pilani. In fact, in all my board meetings at JKLU, we always discuss bits Pilani, because every decision that we take in the board meeting with my founders and Singhania family, I will always say, I'm proposing this because this is how bits Pilani does it. Every board meeting will have a reference to bits Pilani. Because if I were to say we should do this because IIT Kanpur does it, then immediately somebody will say that's a government institution. We can't compete with the government institution and so on.
Thank you. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Professor Kohli, would you like to say something?
It has been a very good talk and thought-provoking talk. The only thing I wanted was to react on the interference from the government or from the regulatory bodies. The DCI, Bar Council of India, Architectural Council of India, all these, PCI, Pharmaceutical Council of India, they charge huge sum for giving permissions, which is not applicable in the Sarkari universities. And the Sarkari universities, we were not bothered about 2F, 12B. All this is, once it is open, chahe hamari university was in rented teen ke chhat ke upar, the university Bashinda, we had recognitions of everyone. And the amount of sum they are charging for every course, 5 lakh rupees. For BCI, we have paid 25 lakhs. So is the case with the Architectural Council of India, 25 lakhs. And then there is no parallel with Sarkari universities. UGC, you say that they don't interfere. Wait a moment, they will. See, the thing is, all these regulatory institutions, they understand that they are unable to deliver. That is why they are trying to be, forcing the things. So this is what pinches me more. For taking only the connection of water, last time मैंने बताया था, we had to pay 2.44 lakhs crores, 244 लाख रुपया only for the connection लगाने के लिए. ये सरकारी हम ये सोचते हैं कि भाई एमिटी बहुत पैसा है, के पास बहुत पैसा है, बिरला के पास बहुत पैसा है, जितना मर्जी ले. मैंने asked the questions, रोज दिहाड़ी कभी वो आ जाएंगे एनवायरमेंट पोल्यूशन वाले, कभी आ जाएंगे पानी वाले, कभी हॉर्टिकल्चर वाले. अब तो खैर इनको पता लग गया कि यहाँ से मिलेगा कुछ नहीं. Otherwise, the psyche of Indian psyche is such. So we understand that जो Dr. Grover ने शुरू में बोला that private institutions, they have to rub shoulders. We are in the phase of making. So teething problems, they do come, and we appreciate also if there are no problems, there is no charm of life. Problems need to come. So, and we need to find solutions. But our path is to compete. And competition, not only for the sake of competition, but in terms, जैसे आपने बोला ना, student-centric. This approach is a very good approach. We have to involve the students. And the students, they deliver much better. ये हम भी देखते हैं. But कुछ चीजें हैं जिसमें students, out of politics, out of jealousies, out of these things, they try to misuse their power. That control has to be with the administration. So otherwise, credit transfer, this is now made known in the new education policy. We also undertake this credit transfer, we accept, and students, they participate in everything. And even in our board meetings also, there are student representatives, but we have made a sort of system, not by pick and choose. So that system, if there is no problem at all. Even for examination, we have made it so student-centric that students have to choose the date and time of their exam. And we have given a window that in these 7 days you have to clear your exams. They have to select morning के किस hour में मैंने exam देना है, किस दिन देना है, कौन सा देना है. And I feel very happy that अब हमारे exam Monday से शुरू होने हैं. So we have given them the window. About 85% of the students, they are trying to clear their exams on the first 2 days. अगर हमने डेट शीट बनानी होती तो बच्चों ने छुट्टियां मांगनी थी. Nobody asked for holidays. जैसे कि हम एक दिन में 3 एग्जाम दे देंगे. So that it is a good model, and I appreciate your initiative and the way you have taken it up. Really good. And dual degree के अंदर Dr. Dheeraj, dual degree में eligibility is an important issue. You said that one cannot do BTech and MTech together. For MTech, one is not eligible till one is BTech. So dual degree system is that if I am doing BTech, at the same time, let us say I want to take something in languages or something in fine arts, something, some courses. So that way it is dual degree. And initially, we also thought that we can say that it is integrated program. These are not dual degrees. And I don't know, in our UGC monitored system, there is LOCF, Learning Outcome Based Curriculum Framework, which they have made compulsory, and all these things are included in it. So thank you so much for giving good thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm probably just lucky to be in Rajasthan, frankly. I mean, in terms of people making phone calls is much, much less. And in the last 2 months, I have received phone calls from 3 of the most important ministers on the cabinet about admissions. To all 3, I've said, sir, nahi ho payega. And that's it. There is no further question, right? This is not the experience I had in PEC, unfortunately, but yahan pe jo hai, it is very, very different. I mean, nobody forces you to do anything. And in terms of bribe or whatever, I mean, just last month we got a new electricity connection where we invested almost 2.5 crores. In this big project, the person who was digging and so on, and he had to get all the this thing. I think the total amount of money which was over and above his whatever was probably 50,000 rupees. So in a project of 2.5 crores, I think the padding is just about that, right? So it's I mean, we were initially expecting it could be a few lakhs, right? And that's the way it is. So I think Rajasthan, frankly, my experience has been extremely positive with the government. Even ministers understand. I tell you, once there was one guy who was, working in our hostels. He was drunk in the morning. He came to office and he misbehaved with 2-3 women employees, right? So after he kind of got cooled down, I called him to my office and I said, look, do I file an FIR or are you resigning? These are the 2 options I'm giving you. Yes, sir, I'll resign. Right? So he resigned same day. We removed him. And then he goes to a minister. Look, I've been unfairly forced to resign because nothing had happened really. Minister called me directly. I mean, so I told minister, this is what had happened. And he said, I'm sorry, sir, I'm taking your time. If this is the case, I'm going to make sure the guy now goes to jail. He was from his constituency, his village. So here, I think politicians are very, very cooperative is what I have seen.
Ragitha, we are in a better place.
Yes.
Fortunately, he was not a ST student.
So there have also been category students also, but I mean, we haven't had a problem with them. I mean, there was one student. So see, things happen. I mean, there was one guy who we terminated for misbehaving in the class. He went to UGC and UGC asked us for some explanation, and we sent him all the documents of the disciplinary committee. UGC never came back to us after that. He wrote at least 50 emails to UGC, and UGC never came back to us after this. Then, he wrote another email to UGC where he said that this university does propaganda for Congress and they are anti-BJP, anti-Modi. Okay. Immediately that UGC again wrote to us saying what's happening here and all that. So we again sent the same document that we had sent last year about, this is the disciplinary committee thing. Again, UGC says, okay, fine, we are not getting into this. Right.
I have a very small question.
Yeah.
With so many different innovative approaches to teaching, if I were a young teacher to join your university, I would be very confused. So do you have special orientation sessions, training sessions, or instructions in whatever way?
No, I think the focus really is, so in the beginning, the focus really is this project-based learning. And the first day we will tell you the simplest of the things, which is just monitor the project every week, right? Not every semester or at the end of the semester. I think we start with that. That is something that we will tell every faculty member as soon as they join. The rest of the things you will learn on the job. You will, you will have interactions, faculty meetings, and so on and so forth. So far, we have not had a formal structure of, induction and so on. Rabia is on this call, so she may say more. She joined us last year. So we don't have a plan because really speaking, we are a very small university, and every year we are looking at 2-3 people in engineering, 2-3 people in design, 2-3 people in management to be hired. So organizing a workshop for this small set of people is a little difficult. So we'd say very few things in the beginning, and then everything else is kind of you learn from your peers, which is not good, but we will probably do better when we grow up and have more hirings done per year.
Exactly. This is how I did. So we don't have a formal training kind of a thing, but generally, like I joined in May, so I had a couple of months before the classes. It was in August. So we kind of interacted and saw the curriculum, and we had some meetings, and that's how we figure out how to do it. And moreover, I had a fellow faculty with me, and 2 of us were going to the classes. So we managed.
So Rabia moved from PEC to JKLU when I moved to JKLU.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rabia.
Yeah, welcome.
So I think it is time to close. Professor Satyamurthy.
It was a wonderful talk.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Satyamurthy sir, because he has been innovator in his work.
I already I made interruption right in the beginning with apologies, and later on I followed it up with a specific question regarding the, since you specifically asked regarding the interference. I would not say there were no interference when I was at Mohali, but I must say that there was a graceful exit from the other side. I didn't have to. Once they learned, what I did was transparent, and I stayed with firm. There was no problem. I don't want to get in. Of course, we cannot afford to get into the details. I wish Dheeraj all the best.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Divya, you wanted to say something? Divya,
no, ma'am. Thank you very much. I addressed all my questions and I thoroughly enjoyed the talk. Thank you to the organizers as well. Thank you, Professor Dheeraj. It was wonderful.
Thank you. So I would request Mr. Dharamveer to present his vote of thanks now.
I would like to thank Professor Sanghi for an excellent lecture and the newer ideas that are emerging in the area of higher education. I'm sure that there is a huge requirement for making innovations in higher education. Even NEP, if once implemented, would also bring rapid changes, which will be in the line of other countries, and we can make a mark internationally. Currently, we still remain one of the important manpower supplier to many countries. Now, that is a good sign, though, but we would also like to see that some of the best brains stay within the country And work environment, the laws, regulations are also getting modified. And I'm sure in next 5 to 10 years, impact would be felt. And the role of higher education, especially in technical areas, medical area, would be at the core of such innovations and progress that we make in the years to come. As I see that major investment would take place in infrastructure, in the armaments, and many other emerging areas of science and technology. The present government itself is seized of this matter, but the confidence that India is gaining by the day would drive innovation. And I'm sure that it would be a sustainable one. And we should be able to reach the top 3 or 4 countries in this respect. Thank you very much for such a good lecture. And we shall be grateful if you could keep advising us from time to time, as you did when you were at Chandigarh.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
And I'm grateful to Professor Grover, Professor Satyamurthy, Professor Kohli, and all others for being here. All of them have made tremendous innovation in the universities or institutes they had set up. I remember Professor Satyamurthy when he came to this area, and when he left, there was a world of change. And I think it became some kind of a trendsetter in this part of the country. So it's Professor Kohli.
Thank you. Maipal ji,
lecture.
Next week ka lecture announce kar dijiye.
Yes, ma'am.
It is next Saturday, 11 a.m. And the speaker is Professor Ashwini Parikh. And our guest of honor is Professor Rakesh Tuli, the founder and director of NABI. And the lecture would be delivered by the present director, Executive Director NABI.
Thank you. Thank you. Then we'll sign off.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.